For the first time, we are hearing from Lia Thomas. If you don't know, she's the UPenn swimmer who was at the center of the controversy about trans women competing in women's sports. Now, a lot of folks think she has a competitive advantage over cisgender female athletes. Here's some of what she said about it on GMA.
Trans people don't transition for athletics. We transition to be happy and authentic and our true selves. Transitioning to get an advantage is not something that ever factors into our decisions. There are cis women who are very tall and very muscular and have more testosterone than another cis woman, and should that then also disqualify them?
Tori, what do you think about what she said?
I would just want a disclaimer. I know you do that a lot. I have zero problems with people transitioning, and I'm happy she said it's not for the sport. I still have an issue here with just, in my eyes, her lungs are bigger, her shoulders are bigger. I know muscle mass is different because of what she has to do, but I'm not fully comfortable, I'll be super honest with you, in them racing together. And if that sounds awful, I don't mean it to be. I'm just saying I'm still learning. I'm still educating myself, I guess.
But what would the flip side be?
That trans people would compete against other trans. I know, and
there's not very many trans athletes,
very
so
few.
You're segregating then.
Otherwise, though, is it an unfair advantage in a sport that's all about rules and games and a
But there's like one in a million. I just want to make that very clear. This isn't an epidemic. So go ahead.
Oh yeah, and there's not that many. And when we talk about competitive advantage, I mean, Jeff, you and I watch sports all the time. The first couple games of every college football season, it's literally a team that has 30 or 40 future professional players playing against like a team that probably was out at the bar last night. Small schools with less than 1,500 students. And it's a money exchange really between these large schools to warm up for the season and these small schools. There's a ton of competitive advantage that is really just disjointed and unbalanced throughout college sports. So I think the idea of just looking at fair and balanced in terms of that issue is that's not the issue we should be talking about. The issue is, can you name another college female swimmer?
Thank you.
Because if you can't, then this is really just an issue about trans people. If you really are concerned about competitive balance in women's swimming.
But do you understand what I'm saying? I think the body.
And I think something should be done. Like, we should have more research. But I don't know if it's just we're looking at this strictly because the people here are concerned about competitive balance, because we saw the difference in weight rooms when it was the women and the men's Final Four. So that wasn't an issue then. So why is it now?
Let me take your argument that you said about like bigger schools like Alabama going to play
like college football,
right? To go play a school like me, right? We're not talking about college football teams with professional athletes beating up on a women's team. Okay, that's a totally different game. We don't do that because it's not fair. Right? So when someone transitions over, again, I'm with Tori on this. I have nothing against trans people or them trying to compete in anything. But as soon as you say that, this is why I'm against cancel culture and labels. You just get labeled transphobic.
I think we're having a pleasant conversation.
Right, but I'm saying people out there just say you're transphobic. I don't think it's fair, right? That's all I have to say. But on that same breath, we just talked about schools being shut up, what we should do about this reform and that reform. I'm more concerned about schools being shot up at the rate that they are, right? Yeah. As opposed to, hey, let's look over here and talk about trans athletes. And now I'm mad at that guy on TV for saying something I don't think he should have. Let's stay focused as Americans. In the scheme of things, I don't even care what you do. I don't care if you come in first or break a record, you come in last. I care about the future of our children. And we're so distracted with these little things that get on people's nerves, and then you lose focus on what's really important.
Can I just say something?
Even though it is important, it is important.
That sounded like a presidential kickoff right there, Jeff.
He's running. He's running. Look at him. Jeff's running.
I'd rather live on Gilligan's Island than run for president.
But that's kind of what we want. We want a president that doesn't really want to be president.
Is Gilligan's Island a real island?
I'll look for it.
No. Coming up, Dr. Kohli is going to join us to continue this conversation from a medical standpoint. Does she think that trans athletes have an unfair advantage? We are continuing our discussion about Lia Thomas, and Dr. Kohli joins us to give her expert medical opinion.
All right, Doc, let's get right. Yes, happy Monday. Happy Tuesday. We're going to jump right in. Now, does experiencing male puberty give trans athletes like Lia an unfair advantage against competitors?
I have to be honest, in my opinion, I think absolutely. Because there is a difference between a man and a woman in their lung size. So women have lungs that are 10 to 15% smaller than men. That's not something that's going to change with the hormones. Once you've gone through puberty, your bone density density, your body mass, your muscle mass, all of those change. Now, some of that can be reversed with hormones like muscle mass, but not your bone mass or your bone size. Let's talk about the hand size. Men are just bigger, right? So if you're talking about a sport like swimming, and Sam, you know, your hands are used to propel you. So if you've got bigger hands, you're going to be able to propel yourself a little bit more efficiently. So I think it's just not a level playing field. I think we need to have trans women compete against trans women and trans men against trans men and have a cis and a trans category.
All right, so Doc, you were talking about hormone replacement therapy. Does that reverse puberty in any way?
It can't. I mean, think about it. And you can hear in Lia Thomas's voice, it is so deep, right? That's not something you can reverse. So it's almost changes the cells in your body in a way that some of those changes can't be reversed. Now, some things can get reversed. So muscle mass is one of them. Blood counts, which tend to be higher in men, if you switch them to estrogen, the counts will go back to kind of what women have. And that's why they say that waiting period of 1 to 2 years to sort of help some things reverse. But everything just doesn't go back the way it was before. Now, it might be totally different had she transitioned before puberty.
Yes.
Exactly right.
I think that's
think
kind of
about
the
that.
yeah.
But is that something that is ethical to do?
I mean, kids are actually going trans. There's a lot of pediatricians that are writing books about kids on how to be trans, but the medical community is very divided about it because, as you all know, there's a lot of sexual identity issues that are normal during puberty, where you're exploring, you're not sure where to settle, and if you do it before puberty, it could potentially have more long-lasting effects.
Is it fair to say we just need to learn more? And in the meantime, just to be compassionate,
Right.
And just have conversations like this without it
sounds like a
becoming-
cop-out, but it's not. You know?
We need to learn more.
Right.
We need to learn more, and I think that's the biggest thing. We need to fund research and science in this because it's now becoming something that more people are doing. So we need to learn more about it. As a cardiologist, I'm always at a loss when I see a trans patient because I don't know what their cardiovascular risk is.
Right.
Should I put them in the male category, in the female category? How do I assess their risk and how do I treat it? So we need more research, Sam.
I never thought
Maybe
about that.
research will be done by you. We'll be looking at a big statue of you like you did all the research.
Oh, statue, I like that.
Wouldn't that be funny? Kohli. All right, we are going to take a hard turn here. And I know that's not easy, but this is what we do on the show because that's how the world is. We can't ignore the tragedy in Texas and the mass shootings that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead, or the 14 other mass shootings that happened over Memorial Weekend, just that weekend. Now, a lot of people out there blame this on mental illness. And from a doctor's point of view, can you say if you are mentally ill, will that cause someone to commit a mass shooting?
I am so sick and tired of hearing mental illness being blamed for these mass shootings. You know, as a medical professional, of course, mental health, mental illness, psychotic breaks, delusions can be a part of it. But that doesn't explain what's happening in our country, guys. We really need to think about these shootings as a public health issue. Because if you look at other countries where they have just as much mental health issues, perhaps even more, because they're underdiagnosed and undertreated, they're not having this kind of health crisis. The CDC just released a report a few weeks ago. Guess what the #1 cause of death is amongst our kids and adolescents?
Guns.
I don't-
It's gotta be guns.
Firearm-related violence.
Here in the United States.
Highest cause, higher than anything else, and for the first time ever. And the curve looks like this. So to me, this is a public health issue. We cannot use mental health as a cop-out, and I think I'm annoyed when people say it's all mental health. And I like the point you made, Sam, which was that there's some mental health, but gun control and access to guns is a big piece of it.
I hope we'll get there. I really do, for our future's sake. Thanks, Dr. Kohli. We appreciate you. If you guys have a question you'd like Dr. Kohli to answer, write to us on social media or info@dailybosslive.com. We'll be right back.